Welcome to the original SEC versus Big Ten podcast. This is Ron from Oakland, live here in the streets of Oakland. What's going on, baby? We should have Robert anytime, any moment. He could come in. He might not be able to make it in today. So, what we're talking about, we're not going to be long, but we're talking about the chaos of what's going on in week 4 so far and what we're expecting to see possibly this weekend. We're gonna we dropped the poll on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, new rankings. For the first time in a long time, I think we have the rankings show that all 3 Florida teams are actually ranked at the time. Florida State is knocking at a top 5 ranking possibly, and there's a lot of battles this weekend, and we're looking at a top 25 battles according to the AP poll. We have UCLA, Utah, Ole Miss and Alabama, Oregon State and Washington State, and the Big 2, Ohio State at Notre Dame, and we have Iowa at Penn State. Well, according to the other polls, we have to the Championship Experience Minds poll, we're dropping. We see that Clemson made it right back in. So that's a ranked game now. We have a noon game between Clemson and Florida State. We're excited about that. We're excited about the possibility of so much chaos. And we haven't seen a season similar to this since 2007, where there was the only 2-loss national championship in the last 30 years. So what's the theme of chaos? As if any of you guys would watch Game of Thrones, you would know that the most famous quote in that show is "Chaos is a ladder." And that's exactly the ladder of teams who you did not expect to be there in December. They're just going to be a steady presence and just keep winning. And at the end of November, you're going to be like, Alabama's not here. Ohio State's not here. Georgia's not here. Oklahoma's not here. This is a new scenery of playoff contenders. That's exactly what I want to see. And there's a lot of games this weekend. I think we're looking at possible upsets, possible change of dynamics. And I'm going to start with the 9 a.m. games. 9 a.m. So Florida State at Clemson. This is a real battle. Florida State is going to be mentally there, but the player is going to be 100% there. When a noon game, you got to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. and those are the worst performers. You want to get a team upset, let them play at noon. That's where you might see the worst play then. The only teams I say is like the Michigan, Ohio State games where they don't play any night games in November. That's where you see the outlier. But Florida State likes to play at night. They struggled at a noon game last week. And we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see really what Florida State's all about. This game right here. If they win this game, they're my top 3. Right now, I have them ranked at number 6. And before we drop the rankings on the bottom of the screen, just want to say join us in the march to 300,000 subscribers, a Late Kick with Josh Pate show. Check out the YouTube channel, Late Kick with Josh Pate, and at the X page, Late Kick Josh. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Great show. It's the top show of college football. It's on the level of Paul Feinbaum. I prepare my weeks with Josh Pate. He doesn't know it, but I was Cali Goon and Swamp Goon 81 on the Swamp Board in 247 for years. So he's had dialogue with me on Twitter and 247 and may not even know it. So big fan. If you're a big fan of college football, SEC, in spite of what you think, that show is going to bring you a lot of knowledge. He's bringing in top tier people. Cole Kublik, I think his show blew up as soon as he was on that show. You know, he's going to have top tier people. So before we get on to the rankings, just want to say hit that like and subscribe button. Join us in the march to 300,000 subscribers. All right, so Georgia's still sitting at number 1. And the reason why they're still sitting at number 1 because they're the 2-time reigning champion. They've only lost 3 games since 2020 season began. They've only lost 1 game in the last 20 games or 30 games or so, however ago it was. It feels like it's been forever since we saw Georgia lose a game, and that was against Bryce Young and the Alabama squad in Atlanta. And it's been dark road for me as a Florida Gator watching the level of success that Kirby has been sustaining since 2017 season, actually. So until they actually lose the game, I'm not going to drop them. They're the top dog. No one's beating them. And I know what games look like when they're playing for Vegas, when their kids are getting paid. USC 2005 and Ohio State against Georgia. Those kids were getting paid. As soon as the game got close enough, they stepped up enough just to take over the game. Georgia has on switch and off switch. They can switch anytime they want to. So until someone could shut those lights down completely in the game, I'm not giving the champs any leeway of anything but the top dog on the streets. All right, number 2, we still got Michigan. And because I believe Michigan is going to be the best team in the Big Ten all when the set is done. So they're sitting there. And following them behind is the last game they got to play before they get into the Big Ten championship, who I think has the best shot of ruining Michigan's season, and that's Ohio State. They have the talent. I don't think they have the quarterback. I'm expecting them to struggle Saturday. Actually, I have them on upset alert. I like Notre Dame's coaching staff. I like the quarterback. I like the defense. I'm taking Notre Dame to win this game at home. They played Ohio State pretty strong last year. So this year, we're expecting to see Florida State going to Clemson and not knowing what they're going into. And we were expecting Ohio State to go into Clemson, Notre Dame, not knowing what they're getting into. See, chaos is a ladder. You know what chaos happens? It's when the top teams have to go on the road and win, but they don't. That's exactly what we're dealing with here. That's exactly what we're seeing here. So this week we have Penn State hosting Iowa, 7:30 game. That should be exciting. I'm not going to be able to see much of it. I'm going to be too focused on my Gators. No matter who we play, I'm watching the Gators on the main screen. Now I'll put the other guy on the fourth screen because we got YouTube TV over here. That's going to be a game. Underrated games, Utah, UCLA. Last year, Utah got the brakes beat off of them on the road in UCLA. Utah's not the same team away from their home, and that can be a really dangerous game for UCLA. If UCLA can pull that game off, they're going to climb in the top 15. That's a great game. Oregon State is a team that's ranked by many, but not by the poll hasn't seen enough. They're ranked in the top 30, but they haven't been able to edge one-loss teams like LSU, Tennessee, and Clemson. Now, they get this win over Washington State this weekend. That's a statement game so far in the first quarter of the season is over. Now we enter to the second quarter of the season, or if you look at it, we're still in the first half of the season. So seeing that, I'm interested and intrigued to see what goes on in the Pac-12 this weekend. Colorado at Oregon. I like Colorado to cover but still lose. I think that could be more of a 17-point game. I think Colorado has the better coaching staff. I think they're very multiple in their offense approach. Prime, I'm seeing a good coach. Prime, I respect the Prime. He's Prime. I grew up on Prime. As a kid watching Prime play baseball and football all in the same week. I was loving watching the Braves as a kid. Ole Miss, Alabama. Now that's a game. Gonna check in on the tablet here. And I gotta refine because I don't have a producer like Jesse or anything. So I'm just doing this all by myself. I just got a recorder right here. But Ole Miss is gonna be on the road. Now, this is what I want to talk about here. The decay in dynasty, as Michael Bratton says on the SEC podcast. The reason why I agree with him and why I call it also a decay in dynasty is that since 2020, the season that they last won their national championship, Alabama, Nick Saban has lost his strength and conditioning coach, lost his top assistant is sitting at Georgia, no longer has the running back coach that he had for years after this season. He loses Sark to Texas. Sark takes as much as he can out of Alabama. And what you're seeing is there's no longer the ability to promote from within that he used to have the luxury before, because a lot of those younger cats that were being developed during the time that Kiffin was there and Kirby was there, Kirby Smart, the time they were at Alabama, most of the talent that was being developed in the background are either at Georgia or Florida. When Amari Cooper tells Andy Jean, true freshman at Florida, to commit to Florida, he recommends him because his speed training coach is now under Billy. You know, when Billy was the wide receiver coach, he had Kerry Colbert as his off-field assistant. And so Kerry Colbert comes over in Florida. He was comfortable with who he knew. So a lot of people, when you hear Billy Napier, you're going to hear him refer to Alabama and Georgia as his coaching tree. He's sending a lot of people from Louisiana specifically to Georgia to get developed. And that has fallen off the cliff. Saban's not able to develop from within. It's chaos within the culture, because what's going on is Alabama used to be a place where you get developed, and now people are just there to get to the next job. And that's part of the success. That's part of the dynasty falling. You know, you can point fingers, and when you saw Rome fall, you can say Constantinople, going into the Germanic tribes, the wars with the Germanic tribes. You can find a lot of reasons, but you start seeing the dynasty fall over a couple 100-year period. And so it didn't just happen overnight. Rome just didn't decide to say, fuck it, I'm no longer Rome. It happened with Scott Cochran. It happened with Kirby Smart. It happened with Lane Kiffin. Happened with Danny Lanning. And all these guys decided to leave Alabama and go with Kirby to Georgia. That's why there was so much bitterness with Alabama. They saw it. They're like, dude, you're taking everybody with them. And that wasn't received too well. You know, I was still in Georgia when Kirby Smart was hired, and when Kirby had the meeting with the employees in Georgia, state legislators and, you know, university guys and everything, he had a meeting with all these people and told them exactly how Alabama had its success and what exactly we need to do collectively in order to make sure that Georgia has that success. And the people of Georgia has that competitive drive to say, fuck it, we're in. And you know, when I was a kid and a teenager and in my 20s, I used to tell my buddies, I'll be 40 years old when I see Georgia win a national champion. I was conceived the day Georgia won their national championship in 1980. I was 40 when they won their first one. I'll be 42 in less than 10 days. So it's been a ride watching 40 years of bad football, and all of a sudden Georgia's at the top of their game. That's part of the decaying dynasty. Another dynasty must rise. So honestly, we're looking at how we saw LSU Alabama from 2007 to 2014, possibly 2012, really. You can probably relate that to what we're about to see in the future. The future is, and what the present is, people haven't caught up yet, is that the SEC East is the best division in college football. And it's been that way for over 2 years. Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia are elite competition. And I wouldn't take A&M over the top three. I wouldn't take LSU over the top three. Alabama might not be able to beat Kentucky right now. Who else? Who else? You know, Ole Miss is looking like the dark horse and win the SEC West to me. I haven't seen enough from LSU right now. I haven't seen their line of scrimmage dominate yet. I'm waiting for Cole Kubler to get back with me on that. I asked him, I said, what are you seeing from LSU right now that tells you that they can win? Brian Kelly's an excellent coach. He shut my mouth. I wasn't a believer in him prior to. I was one of those people that Josh Pate referred to as that guy that might was talking down about Brian Kelly doesn't belong in the SEC and that he was a fake. I was one of those crowds. And when he beat us, I shut up. When he beat Alabama, I just shut the fuck up completely. And then when he went into Atlanta, I'm just like, okay, what do you do year two? And I'm not sure if the offensive line and defensive line is at a level to win the SEC. Early success can be a curse. I've seen Dan Mullen have early success. I've seen McElwain have early success. I've seen Meyer have early success. It didn't sustain itself. We needed a new program, new direction here in Florida. So that's why I think Billy Napier is the man. And that win over Tennessee was gratifying in that point because I didn't expect us to lose the food. If you saw my preseason predictions, I got us at 10-2. I said, I said Utah's a toss-up because of the elements of their home. I know about their juju magic there. I know about the hawk and the Native American magic. It's real. USC fans have been telling me about it for years. I've seen it. My brother lived out there for a year, and I experienced the native tribes out there. It's real. The Utes are real. So blessings. They won that game, and they might win the Pac-12. They're a legit team. But we're in SEC play now. The Florida Gators, it takes a week off. They get ready to build their depth at Charlotte, so they have to focus on executing. So they're ready to play on the road the following week for a noon game, which would be their first game of the year that's not a night game. So that'll be challenging. So there's challenges for them. Georgia plays, I forgot who they're playing. Whoever Georgia playing, they're not playing an SEC game. And let's talk about that for a second, because last week there's a lot of hype that's being built up on South Carolina having a great half. Who gives a fuck about a great half? If you don't have a great half, you can only talk about a great half when you win it. When you lose, a bad half is the reason why you lost. You don't get a benefit of doubt because you played a great half. I've been telling, I got buddies, born and raised in Georgia, Florida area. I got a lot more friends who are Georgia alum, Georgia fans than Florida State and Miami friends, because they're actually more intelligent humans, even though they bark at everything. So, but they're more intelligent in my mind. But they freak out every year since 2018. They freak out every year this time of year, because Kirby always shows bullshit, and it's conservative offense. Doesn't look like it's going to win a national championship. It doesn't look like they could beat Bama with this offense. I've been hearing it every year, and I'm chatting with my guy during the game, and he's like, "Oh my God, we're going to lose 2 or 3 games with this offense. Kirby needs to do this and blah blah blah. Oh, blah blah blah." I'm like, man, calm down. I've been telling. It's like we go through this every year. I got to tell them all again. Calm down. It's okay. Because what happens is Georgia plays coy. They're basically challenging their players to win with page 1 and page 2 of the offense. And that's the challenge. How good are you? Are you elite? That means we don't need to show our playbook until we get to Jacksonville. And that's exactly what it. They might show something with Auburn, because they never had to prepare really for Auburn before Jacksonville until last year, and it's becoming a different norm now. So not playing Auburn later in the year. Remember, Florida used to have to play Auburn, LSU, and Georgia back to back before we added South Carolina and Arkansas. So is when you play Auburn during a certain time of year, it could be a tricky game. So Auburn, they may have to go into their bags of tricks then. But basically, Kirby doesn't want Florida to be able to prepare for him, because that's always going to be a Super Bowl. No matter how good they are, they have to beat us, because they know if they don't beat us, they might not get to Atlanta. And 2020 showed that. So they should beat us. I'm not saying they're not going to beat us, but Kirby's always going to play that the way a championship coach is. It's a big-time rivalry. Respect your rivals. Back to Ole Miss and Alabama. If Lane Kiffin pulls this off, you're talking about since 2020. I mentioned Scott Cochran leaving. I mentioned that, but also since that year, he won the national championship. Sark leaves with a lot of coaches within. But he also, what happens is he loses games to assistants that he's never lost to previously. So now he loses a game to Fisher. And that was the tail sign to me that Dan Mullen was no longer qualified to be the coach at Florida. You don't lose to Jimbo Fisher. You lose to Jimbo Fisher, you're a trash coach. And that's just my opinion. So for Saban to lose that game and for A&M to get up for Alabama, it's almost like an insult. It's like, dude, you're playing with food now. Like this is the picture of the elephant running from the mice. You know what I'm saying? They're running from the mice. They're scared of the mice, and that's what A&M is. What the fuck is an Aggie? You know, they haven't accomplished anything. They're not even an SEC program in my face, in my mind. I don't respect them. I shouldn't respect them. And if you're an OG, you got SEC championships. You shouldn't respect them either because they haven't warranted any of this respect. Why are they ever ranked before they win a big game? They lost to Miami. They lose to food every year. Then you lose to Kirby in the national championship. Now you just lost to Sark. That's 3 assistants. You lose to Lane Kiffin this week. And I think I told Jerome from Birmingham, Paul Feinbaum show caller, Ole Miss by 11. Fight me. Ole Miss by 11. That's real. That's really what it can be. So if Ole Miss goes on the road, goes into Alabama after they played poorly on the road last week in South Florida, where they should have been able to, adjust. They should have been able to, show something. Defense shows something, but the offense, they were getting pushed around by a G5 defense. That's alarming. And if South Florida can do that, which was basically an Alabama crowd in Tampa, I think you're playing against a defense coordinator that's familiar with your system. This can get ugly with Dart. They have the explosive fireworks to put Alabama's offense in a bind. So understanding that's going to be a big time atmosphere, that game is paramount. All right, so the Alabama dynasty is decaying. It's going to rot right in front of you Saturday. And we're going to see Ohio State rot in front of us as well, because I don't think they have a really good shot of winning this game against Notre Dame. This is the best Notre Dame team I've seen in a while. They play really smash mouth football. They got a great running back, physical at the line of scrimmage. Defense has a dominating sense of nature. They're not losing the food like they were under Brian Kelly. Like Brian Kelly blows the game every year that he shouldn't. Just like he did against Mike Norvell. You played Mike Norvell 4 years in a row. You haven't beaten him at LSU, but you can beat him at Notre Dame. Says that it was a fluke, and now you're playing them headstrong. But Notre Dame at home, they played Ohio State really tough on the road last week. And I think that's a game that Notre Dame should win. Now, Oregon hosting Colorado. I'm going to respect Colorado. As I told you before earlier, I got them covering, but losing. Oklahoma's playing on the road to Cincinnati. That's going to be a game to watch. Keep it, just keep on the score. And if you got it on TV, you might just want to flash by and just see how good is Oklahoma really playing. I think that could be a sneaky trap game for them. Iowa, I am interested in seeing how well Iowa plays away from Iowa. It's going to be a night game. Do they have the defense to keep their offense in this game? I think Penn State might be the dark horse to win the Big Ten. That's why they're in my top 5 currently. Southern Cal, they play Colorado next week. The bulk of their schedule is late in the season, so we really won't know anything much about this team. But the one problem I see with Southern Cal is they don't run the ball and they don't stop the run really well. And until then, I don't know if they could beat Utah at a neutral field-like location. I have Clemson in the bottom of the top 25, and I am waiting to see Garrett Riley's offense. And I think this is the game we see it. I think they've been playing as I described with Kirby Smart, hiding his offense until the Florida State game. Or to the Florida game for Kirby, but this Florida State game is big, is in September, is early. And It's a trap game for Florida State. I know Florida State. The reason why I say it's a trap game because I think it's a game they're going to go in maybe with a little overconfidence and underestimating the opponent. And that's always where teams get upset. And just I feel like there's going to be a lot of eyes on that game at noon, and we're going to as they get into the big games, noon in the East Coast, 9 a.m. game here. As you get into the second tier games, we're going to be, focused on this and who's actually winning. I think it's going to be a close game. But Clemson's defense is what has me, looking like, yeah, I think they can hold off Florida State because Florida State is basically, they're just moving, shifting their offensive line to give Jordan Trask enough time to scramble. And the thing is, if you give wide receivers more than 3 seconds to get to run a route, they're going to get open. You can't really cover a wide receiver that long unless you got a really elite cornerback play, which I don't think Clemson has. They never have. But I think they have good enough level defense on all 3 stages of the defense from the front line, linebacker, secondary, that they can hold off. And what they have to do is they have to key in on Wilson. Wilson is going to be the issue because Jordan Travis can just throw it up. And he can throw it up high, and Wilson catch it about 8-9 feet in the air. And that's an advantage that a lot of people cannot prepare for. So if their safeties get after it, hit him low, make him feel it. Every time he gets up, make him feel it. It could be a different game. He always drops 1 or 2 balls every game. Utah, UCLA is a game, like I said, should be really watched. There's South Carolina and Mississippi State. Now, that's a big-time game because Mississippi State just got beat down at home by LSU. Didn't even look competitive in that game. Didn't even look like they were Mike Leach's team at all in the last 3 years even. And so they didn't look really that tough. And this is a big-time game. I had South Carolina losing this game early on or winning this game possibly. And this is a toss-up for me because if South Carolina loses this game, they're going to have a hard time winning the rest of the way in winning one game. So they have to get this. They can't fall 1-3 right now. That's it, man. That's in the last. I picked Auburn and A&M to finish last in the SEC. This is the telltale sign. Give me Auburn to win this game. I want Auburn to win. I think A&M should win. I picked them in the preseason to win, but I'm go Tigers. Fuck A&M. Fuck Texas. Fuck the whole entire state of Texas. Excuse me. And if you're younger than 18, say it when your mother's not around. Okay. Fuck A&M. Fuck the Aggies. What the fuck is an Aggie? Little, Lassie. Lassie's no longer a relevant show, man. You got to be like 40 and older to know what the hell that show is, So, not much to talk about the Big Ten. We need to see more wins. We need to see some stability because other than Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, there's not much to talk about in the Big Ten. And they're not really playing each other yet. They kind of reserve their big games for the end of the year. So right now, all eyes are on Penn State, Iowa. All eyes are on Ohio State and Notre Dame. Looks like, someone could be falling out of the top 10 this week, and someone could be falling out of the top 25 this week. One or the other is happening this week. So chaos is a ladder. Who's going to climb that ladder this week? Tennessee is recovering. Florida is getting ready for Kentucky. Kentucky has to get ready for Florida. We have Georgia just getting their team ready for November push. Alabama has a lot of soul searching, climbing the ladder. It's LSU, who they thought they were preseason. Are they going to show something? They got Arkansas, which is usually in a November game, a cold game. This is going to be interesting to see them play this early in September. So that's a hot game this year. Other than that, man, we're going to enjoy this. We might try to drop 2 episodes next week to see how it goes, but we're gonna enjoy this, man. This is when football's at its best, when you don't know what's gonna happen, We don't know that Alabama and Georgia might be in the national championship. We don't know that Ohio State, Georgia is going to play in the national championship. Last year, TCU beating Michigan gave you a sneak preview into what we can actually experience this year. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. College football season like this don't happen too often. So it's Ron from Oakland, live from the streets of Oakland. Thank you. And remember, I put it back on there. Like and subscribe this channel. Like and subscribe, Late Kick Josh. You know, we're doing this from the ground up, organically, grassroots style. So when we blow up, we blow up. When we start putting graphics on here, we'll start putting graphics on here. But right now, I don't have that energy. And so when we get there, we'll get there. Thanks again. We're signing out. Be blessed.